Disney and Rian Johnson's 2017 film Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It's one of the most divisive films in recent memory and held at least partially responsible for completely fracturing an already uneasy fan base. Everything from the director's comments to the plot of the film to most notably the deconstruction of legacy characters meant that this would be a film you would either love or hate. But as a professional cinematographer, I can always at least appreciate when a film tells its story visually and in compelling and thoughtful ways, regardless of what I personally think of that story. So does The Last Jedi succeed in doing this? Unfortunately, no. And it comes down to a single fatal flaw in the approach of Rian Johnson and his longtime collaborator, cinematographer Steve Yedlin. And that approach is technicality over motivation. This affects the film visually by causing both inconsistent lighting and overly simplistic framing. Now, to be as fair as I can, I'm going to be breaking down 3 of the most pivotal scenes and demonstrate how even in the most well-composed scenes, this approach still failed them every single time. So first, let's look at the lighting inconsistencies, starting with Rey's confrontation with Luke. The light source for the scene is established as coming from moonlight and lightning behind a cloud-covered sky just to the right of the screen. This is keeping the characters' faces half in shadow, and this is a great technique to show inner conflict, and so far we're off to a really great start. But now we come to the close-up on Luke after Rey's attacked him. At this angle he's at now, the lighting should be starting to wrap around his face a little bit and soften. Instead, it remains exactly the same in the exact same place in relation to him, casting a hard shadow across exactly half of his face. Now what's interesting is after he stands up and we get another close-up on him, the lighting has changed, looking almost exactly as it should have when he fell down, being a bit more diffused and at a slightly different angle. It's also worth noting that this change doesn't come from the lightning in the sky, as this is the key light for the shot in its constant source. It's not varying or flashing as lightning is shown to do. Now when we cut back to Rey, there is now an additional light source, illuminating her face from beneath, pointing upward. Now this is a technique that's often used in horror films, and it's an effective one, and it creates an unnerving feeling around that character. But in this context, it doesn't really make sense. The same exact problem happens at the end battle scene on Crait. The light source for the scene is clearly established as the setting sun, which would be casting a relatively even, warm light on the actor's face, which it does in the initial first couple of shots. But when we switch to the close-ups, the lighting becomes more and more dramatic, casting half of his face in shadow, and then again in these shots as well. Now this is great for creating a dramatic shot, but it makes no sense in the context of the light source that's already been established. Now even playing devil's advocate, you could even make the argument that the light isn't coming from Crait, but the planet Luke is still sitting on. That would be kind of cool. Except that the source is on his opposite side, so it's not coming from there. And also the light changes between shots based on his position in relation to the sun on the planet. Finally, in the throne room scene, we have the same problem but with an additional element. The lighting structure seems to be constantly changing, with the key light moving between shots regardless of where the actors are staged. But what's even stranger is there seems to be no definitive light source in the room to even justify these changes. When it comes to lighting a scene, technique is just not enough, and you have to understand why the light is placed where it is placed. Otherwise, the scene as a whole will just kind of feel disjointed. Now with the framing of the shots. This film has a very simplistic feel, and that's not because it's inherently bad, but because it just sticks very firmly to the unwritten rules of framing. Rules like wide shots are for establishing the setting, full shots with opposing characters have to have them on opposing sides of the screen. Close-up shots are for important things to highlight. Low-angle shots convey power. Movement enhances action. These are all very basic and simplistic rules that you might hear when you're taking a film theory course in college. There's nothing inherently wrong with these rules, again, but they're just more like guidelines, and adhering to them so strictly to get the shots that are technically good, it just feels simple, and it kind of shows a bit of a lack of imagination. The images from The Last Jedi may technically look proficient in isolation, but taken as a whole, they just feel off. It's technicality over motivation. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't yet, take a second to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like and share it. I love getting to hear from all of you, so let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on the visuals of The Last Jedi.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.